My son called me yesterday after 7 years of silence. Blake finally picked up the phone. Not to apologize, not to reconcile, but to gloat. He told me not to bother coming to his mother's will reading. Said her $58 million fortune was his alone. He was sitting in that lawyer's office, smirking while they read her final words. But Blake didn't know about a single clause I'd planted in our company's articles of incorporation 25 years ago, a clause his mother never knew about, and one that Mr. Phillips was about to read with a smile. Let me back up. I'm Owen Hartman, 55 years old, and until 7 years ago, I was the founder and CEO of Hartman Technologies. Built that company from nothing in my garage, working 16-hour days with grease under my fingernails in dreams bigger than my bank account. My son Blake grew up watching me pour everything into that business. He used to sit on my workbench as a kid, handing me tools while I explained how each circuit worked. The smell of hot steel and WD-40 still fills my workshop today. It's a small space behind my house, but it's mine. Every tool has its place, worn smooth by my own hands. After running a tech company for 20 years, there's something honest about working with metal. It doesn't lie to you. It doesn't betray you. It just bends when you apply the right pressure and heat. I was grinding down a custom bracket when my phone buzzed yesterday morning. The name on the screen felt like seeing a ghost. Blake, I let it ring 4 times before answering. Small act of control when you've had none for almost a decade. Dad, he said, and his voice was different. Cold, professional. The voice of a man who measured his words like stock options. I'm calling to inform you that Mom passed away 3 days ago. He said it like reading a quarterly report. No emotion, just information. The funeral was private, of course. I wouldn't have been invited anyway. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and the words tasted like sawdust. I was sorry for the woman Sophia used to be, not the stranger she became. Save it, Blake snapped. I'm not calling for sympathy. I'm calling about the will reading. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Phillips at Associates is downtown. But don't bother showing up. You're not in it. She left everything to me. I looked around my workshop at the blueprints on the wall, the machinery that represented my life's work since he'd pushed me out. A life I'd built from scratch after losing everything. $58 million, Blake continued, his voice dripping with satisfaction. That's what the estate's worth. My estate now, just thought you should know so you don't get any ideas. You can stay in your little garage and keep making your metal trinkets. The word garage was meant to cut. He knew this was a fully equipped fabrication shop, but he needed to diminish it. Diminish me. It was a habit Sophia had taught him well. Blake was 22 when he came back from college with his bachelor's degree and big ideas about getting his MBA. 2 years later, he returned with that shiny degree and buzzwords about modernizing Hartman Technologies. He talked about market penetration, synergistic solutions, and leveraging core competencies. All the jargon they teach kids who've never built anything with their own hands. Within 3 years, he'd convinced his mother that the company needed fresh leadership. They orchestrated my removal with surgical precision. Board meetings I wasn't invited to. Financial reviews that questioned my outdated management style. Blake painted me as the old-school founder who couldn't adapt to the digital age. The truth was, I'd built Hartman Technologies from a $500 loan and a dream. Started in 1987 when Blake was just 5 years old, working nights in the garage while Sophia tucked him into bed. By the time he graduated college, we were pulling in $50 million a year in revenue. The company that bought his toys, paid for his private school, sent him to Yale, was somehow not good enough for him to respect. The final betrayal came when Blake proposed selling Hartman Technologies to our biggest competitor. Dad, you're thinking small, he'd said in my own conference room, the one where I'd made the decisions that built his trust fund. This is about maximizing shareholder value. I fought it, but Sophia sided with Blake. Business is business, Owen, she'd said. You taught him well, now let him prove himself. They didn't fire me outright. Too messy, too obvious. Instead, they restructured my role into irrelevance, made me chairman emeritus with no actual power, while Blake became CEO at 27. I watched from the sidelines as my son prepared to sell the company I'd bled for to strangers who'd strip it for parts and fire half the workforce. That's when I played my ace in the hole. I'll be there tomorrow, I told Blake calmly. Why do you enjoy public humiliation? He laughed. I'm telling you, you get nothing. The Hamptons house, the penthouse, the stock portfolio, all of it's mine. Even Hartman Technologies belongs to me now. I could picture him in his corner office, the one that used to be mine, probably wearing one of his $3,000 suits and looking out at the city skyline like he owned it all. 10 a.m., I repeated. See you then, son. I hung up and sat in the quiet workshop. The old anger bubbled up, but it wasn't rage that took over. It was cold, calm resolve. The feeling of an ending and a beginning. That night, I pulled out a heavy box I hadn't opened in 20 years. The cardboard was dusty, with Hartman Personal written on the side in my own faded handwriting. Inside were photos of Blake and me in the original garage, holding our first successful prototype. We looked happy. We looked like father and son. There's one picture I stared at for a long time. Blake, maybe 8 years old, wearing safety goggles too big for his face, holding a tiny screwdriver while I showed him how to assemble a circuit board. His eyes were bright with curiosity, not calculation. Beneath the photos were the original incorporation documents for Hartman Technologies. 27 pages of legal language that had seemed so important back then when Sophia and I were young and thought we'd conquer the world together. Most of it was standard corporate boilerplate, but there was one section that wasn't standard at all. Page 23, paragraph 7, the Founder Protection Clause. I traced those words with my finger, scarred from years of metalwork. This clause had been sleeping for 25 years, waiting for the right conditions to activate. Blake had no idea what was coming, and neither had Sophia. See, I'd learned something important during our divorce in 1999. Lawyers get paid by the hour, so they want to finish quickly when everyone's already agreed on the big stuff. Sophia's attorney, some hotshot from downtown, had dismissed my sentimental additions to the corporate structure as legally meaningless but harmless. He'd advised Sophia to just sign everything so they could finalize the divorce and she could get on with her new life. She was eager to remarry then, had her eye on some investment banker who promised to take her company public. That relationship lasted all of 6 months, but by then the papers were filed and my insurance policy was locked in place. The clause was simple in concept, complex in execution. It stated that while operational control of Hartman Technologies could be transferred, my founder's equity stake of 49% would remain in a protective trust until certain conditions were met. If those conditions triggered, the shares would automatically revert to me, regardless of any subsequent sales or transfers. The first condition was financial. The company had to be worth more than $150 million for the clause to activate. Back in 1999, that seemed impossible. We were a small regional outfit with maybe $3 million in annual revenue. But I knew something Sophia's lawyers didn't. I knew what we were capable of building. The second condition was personal, and this is where my chess game really began. The clause would trigger if the designated heir, Blake, failed to maintain what the legal language called a meaningful familial relationship with me for a continuous period of 5 years or more. Not just any contact, but meaningful contact. Phone calls, visits, shared holidays, the kind of relationship a son should have with his father. For years after the divorce, Blake and I maintained that relationship. He'd spend weekends with me, help in the workshop, listen to my stories about the early days of the company. But as he got older and Sophia's influence grew stronger, those visits became less frequent. She had more money for vacations, better connections for internships, fancier friends for him to impress. The real break came when Blake was 25 and fresh out of business school. I'd invited him to my birthday dinner, nothing fancy, just burgers at the local place where we used to go when he was a kid. He canceled last minute for a networking event that Sophia had arranged. That was March 15th, 2017. I remember the date because I wrote it down. It was the beginning of the 5-year countdown. After that, our relationship became purely transactional. Blake would call when he needed something, a signature on corporate documents, approval for major expenditures, my vote on board resolutions, but never just to talk. Never to ask how I was doing or share what was happening in his life. When I tried to initiate those conversations, he'd cut them short with excuses about meetings or travel. The worst part was watching him become someone I didn't recognize. The curious kid who loved taking things apart to see how they worked became a calculating businessman who only saw value in terms of quarterly profits. He started using corporate speak even in casual conversation, talking about optimizing human resources when he meant firing people who'd worked for us for decades. By 2020, 3 years into our estrangement, Blake stopped returning my calls altogether. I'd leave messages on his voicemail, nothing demanding, just, "Hey son, checking in, call me back when you get a chance." He never did. The messages I left became evidence, documented proof of my attempts to maintain contact and his refusal to reciprocate. The final straw came in 2022 when Blake restructured the company without consulting me. On paper, I was still a board member, but he'd scheduled the meeting for a day when he knew I'd be out of town at a trade show. When I confronted him about it, he told me I needed to accept the new reality and stop clinging to the past. That was 5 years and 3 months after our last real conversation. The clock had run out, but Blake didn't know it yet. I closed the box of memories and walked to my kitchen table where I'd laid out all the documentation I'd been quietly gathering for years. Phone records showing my attempted calls and his non-responses. Email logs of my unanswered messages. Calendar entries documenting missed birthdays, holidays, and family occasions. A careful record of a relationship that had died from neglect. Tomorrow, Blake would walk into that conference room expecting to inherit an empire. He had no idea that his own arrogance had just handed it back to me. I poured myself a glass of the whiskey Blake had given me for Christmas 3 years ago, the last gift before our relationship went completely cold. It was expensive stuff, probably chosen by his assistant. I'd been saving it for a special occasion. This seemed like the right time. The next morning, I put on my best suit, the navy blue one I'd worn to Blake's college graduation, back when we still had something to celebrate together. The offices of Phillips & Associates were in a glass tower downtown, the kind of building that screamed money and power. The lobby had marble floors that clicked under your shoes and abstract art that probably cost more than most people's cars. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt longer than it should have. I shared it with a young woman in an expensive dress who kept checking her phone and a middle-aged man who smelled like he'd bathed in cologne. They both looked like they belonged here. I felt like I was a guy who worked with his hands trying to play in their world. But that was the point. They'd all underestimated me for years. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. From up here, you could see the Hartman Technologies building about 6 blocks away. 27 stories of steel and glass with our company name in bold letters near the top. I'd stood in this exact spot during the planning meetings when we'd moved from our old building. Sophia had wanted the biggest sign possible. "People need to know we've arrived," she'd said. Blake was already seated at the head of the mahogany table, wearing a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than my truck. He was scrolling through his phone with the focused intensity of someone very important doing very important things. He didn't look up when I entered, which was fine by me. His deliberate ignorance was just more evidence for my case. Mr. Phillips stood to greet me, a thin man in his 60s with silver hair and the kind of handshake that told you he'd been doing this for a long time. "Mr. Hartman, thank you for coming." Blake finally glanced up, his expression somewhere between annoyance and pity. "Like I told you yesterday, he doesn't need to be here. This is just a formality. Everything goes to me." Phillips adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses and opened a leather portfolio. "All potentially interested parties were invited, Mr. Hartman." The way he emphasized potentially made Blake's jaw tighten. He wasn't used to being corrected, especially not in front of me. The reading began with the standard legal language, followed by Sophia's personal statement about her life and achievements. She'd written herself as the hero of her own story, naturally. The brilliant entrepreneur who'd built a tech empire from nothing. My name appeared exactly once as her former husband and business partner who'd helped in the early stages. Blake's smirk grew wider with each bequest. The Hamptons house where we'd spent those last good summers before everything fell apart. The penthouse in Manhattan that Sophia had bought after our divorce was finalized. The art collection she'd assembled to impress investors and clients. Each piece of property was another nail in what he thought was my coffin. Then came the financial assets, stock portfolios worth $12 million, bonds and certificates of deposit totaling another $8 million, private equity investments in 6 different companies valued at $15 million combined. The numbers kept climbing, and Blake kept glancing at me to see if I was impressed or devastated by what I was losing. I gave him nothing. I sat there like a man at peace with his circumstances, which seemed to unnerve him more than tears would have. Finally, Phillips reached the centerpiece. All remaining assets, including the testator's controlling interest in Hartman Technologies, currently valued at approximately $18.5 million, I leave to my beloved son Blake Hartman to serve as CEO and majority shareholder. Blake leaned back in his chair, crossing his legs in a gesture of complete satisfaction. He'd won everything. The houses, the money, the company. It was a clean sweep. Exactly what he'd expected. This concludes the reading of Mrs. Sophia Hartman's last will and testament, Phillips announced, closing the leather folder with a definitive snap. Blake pushed back from the table and stood up, already reaching for his jacket. "Well, Dad, thanks for coming. I know this must have been difficult, but I hope you understand that Mom made the right choice. The company needs young leadership if it's going to compete in today's market." He was performing magnanimity now, offering me the scraps of his victory. It was almost insulting, but I'd expected it. Everything Blake did was calculated for maximum psychological impact. But Phillips wasn't standing up. Instead, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a second folder, this one older and more worn around the edges. The cardboard was faded yellow, held together with a simple string tie. However, Phillips said quietly, "There's one additional matter to address." Blake froze with one arm in his jacket sleeve. "What are you talking about? You just said the reading was concluded." "The will reading is concluded," Phillips clarified, "but there's the matter of a potentially superseding clause contained within the original Articles of Incorporation filed in 1987. The color drained from Blake's face. "What clause? I've never heard of any clause." Phillips untied the string and opened the old folder, revealing papers that looked ancient compared to everything else we'd been dealing with. The Founder Protection Clause, Article 7, Section 4, Subsection C. Blake was shaking his head before Phillips even finished speaking. That's impossible. My mother would never have agreed to something like that. Her lawyers would never have allowed it. On the contrary, Phillips replied, pulling out a thick document and placing it on the table. This clause was part of the original incorporation in 1987, and it was reaffirmed during the corporate restructuring that accompanied your parents' divorce in 1999. Mrs. Hartman's legal counsel at the time advised her that the clause was, quote, legally meaningless and practically unenforceable. Phillips looked directly at me for the first time since the reading began. There was something in his expression, not quite a smile, but a look of professional appreciation, like a craftsman recognizing another craftsman's work. They were wrong on both counts, he said simply. Blake slumped back into his chair, his triumphant exit forgotten. For the first time in 7 years, he was looking at me not as an irrelevant old man, but as someone who might actually pose a threat to his carefully constructed world. What does this clause say? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Phillips began to read, and I felt 25 years of patience finally paying off. Phillips cleared his throat and began to read from the yellowed document. The Founder Protection Clause states that while operational control of Hartman Technologies may be transferred to designated heirs, the founder's original equity stake of 49% shall remain in protective trust pending the satisfaction of 2 specific conditions. Blake was gripping the edge of the table, his knuckles white. What conditions? Condition 1, Phillips continued. The company must achieve a fair market valuation exceeding $150 million at the time of potential activation. He slid a thick blue folder across the table. This independent appraisal, commissioned by the estate as standard procedure, values Hartman Technologies at $185 million as of last week. Blake stared at the report like it was a death warrant. The very success he was so proud of, the growth he'd achieved as CEO, had just triggered the first part of his own downfall. Condition 2, Phillips read, his voice taking on a more deliberate tone, requires that the designated heir maintain a meaningful familial relationship with the founder for the duration of their tenure. This relationship is defined as regular, substantive contact, including but not limited to shared holidays, family occasions, and personal communication unrelated to business matters. The room went dead silent except for Blake's shallow breathing. Should the heir fail to maintain such a relationship for a continuous period of 60 months or more, the protective trust shall be dissolved and the founder's equity stake immediately reactivated. Phillips reached into his briefcase and began placing documents on the table like cards in a poker game. For the past 6 weeks, as part of the estate settlement process, my firm has been legally obligated to verify whether these conditions have been met. The first document hit the table with a soft thud. Phone records for the past 7 years, subpoenaed from both your cellular providers. They show 47 attempted calls from your father to you, with an average duration of 12 seconds, just long enough to leave a voicemail. 0 return calls. Blake's face was ashen. I was busy, running a company as email correspondence. Phillips interrupted, placing down another stack. 14 messages from your father over the past 5 years. Birthday wishes, holiday greetings, invitations to dinner. 0 responses. I watched my son realize that his years of calculated neglect had been building a legal case against him. Financial records showing no personal gifts, no shared expenses, no evidence of any relationship beyond mandatory corporate interactions. Another document joined the pile, and finally sworn affidavits from 3 family friends and 2 former employees, all testifying to the complete breakdown of personal contact between father and son. Phillips looked up from the papers. The 60-month period of relationship failure was completed in March of 2022. Condition 2 has been satisfied. Blake shot to his feet, his chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. You can't just take away my inheritance because I didn't call my father enough. I'm not taking anything away, Phillips said calmly. I'm simply executing a legal document that's been in effect for 25 years. Both conditions of the Founder Protection Clause have been met. Therefore, 49% of Hartman Technologies shares are as of this moment the legal property of Mr. Owen Hartman. The numbers hit Blake like a physical blow. His $185 million controlling interest had just been cut to a $94 million minority stake. He was still wealthy beyond most people's dreams, but he was no longer the undisputed king of the empire. No, Blake screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me. This is a setup. You planned this whole thing. For the first time since entering that conference room, I spoke. My voice was calm, steady, the voice of a man who'd waited a very long time for this moment. You're absolutely right, Blake. I planned this 25 years ago. His face went through a series of expressions: shock, rage, disbelief, and finally, a dawning understanding of just how thoroughly he'd been outmaneuvered. You can fight it, I continued. Spend the next 5 years and half your inheritance trying to prove you actually maintained a relationship with me. But those phone records don't lie. Those emails don't lie. Those witnesses don't lie. Blake slumped back into his chair, the fight draining out of him. Or I said, standing up, you can accept the consequences of the choices you and your mother made. Blake looked up at me, and for just a moment, I saw the confused little boy who used to ask me why the sky was blue. What happens now? Now I own 49% of Hartman Technologies, I said, and I have no interest in running it day to day. You're still CEO. You still have your mother's houses and investments. You're still a very wealthy young man. A flicker of hope crossed his face. But I continued, things are going to change. No more selling the company to the highest bidder. No more firing longtime employees to boost quarterly numbers. No more treating this business like your personal piggy bank. I walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back at him. And Blake, next Christmas, you're going to call your old man. Not because you have to, but because that's what decent sons do. The sale of my shares happened faster than anyone expected. I didn't want to run Hartman Technologies, and I didn't want to be Blake's business partner. What I wanted was justice, and justice has many forms. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in a much different office. No marble floors or abstract art, just a simple space on the 3rd floor of a brick building with a view of the city park. The nameplate on my desk read Hartman Foundation for Family Business Rights. Every penny of the $90 and $6 million from selling my shares went into that foundation. Our mission was simple: provide free legal resources to founders who'd been pushed out of their own companies by ungrateful family members or hostile partners. My first client was Roy, a 60-year-old who'd built a successful trucking company before his son-in-law and daughter forced him into retirement. He sat across from my desk, clutching a folder of documents, telling me about the business he'd built and lost. I listened to every word. I understood every word. I'd lived every word. When he finished, he looked at me with the desperate hope of a man who'd almost given up. Do you really think you can help me? I leaned forward and smiled. Not the tight smile of a man carrying a grudge, but the genuine smile of a man who'd found his purpose. That's exactly why we're here, Roy. Let's get started. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's using their own weapons to protect everyone they'd hurt next. Blake learned that a father's love, even when rejected, can be the most powerful force of all. And me. I learned that the real victory isn't getting back what was taken from you. It's making sure it never gets taken from anyone else. Sometimes patience isn't just a virtue, it's a weapon that cuts deeper than any blade, because it lets your enemies destroy themselves while you simply wait and watch. The greatest lesson I learned wasn't about business or revenge. It was that a man's true legacy isn't what he builds for himself, but what he builds to protect others from the pain he once endured.